Thank you for watching the In It Together SC Preventing Diabetes in South Carolina docuseries. We encourage you to share this feature presentation with your family, friends, and organizations that may have an interest in diabetes prevention and management. Don't forget to go to inittogethersc.org to learn more about diabetes and to see if you're at risk. November is National Diabetes Awareness Month. In support of the vision of the organization, DAC launched its 5-year strategic plan this month. The plan is built around 5 key strategies. Strategy 1 is for healthcare providers to increase the number that screen, test, and refer those with prediabetes or diabetes into lifestyle change programs. Strategy 2 seeks to increase the availability and accessibility of diabetes prevention and management programs. Strategy 3 is aimed at increasing enrollment into evidence-based lifestyle change programs. Strategy 4 seeks to educate and communicate with DAC's key audiences to provide innovative resources about diabetes prevention and management programs. And Strategy 5 is for employers and insurers, presenting them with options to cover and participate in diabetes prevention and management programs. As you can see, this plan engages everyone, from healthcare providers, employers, and insurers, to individuals with diabetes and prediabetes, and other key stakeholders in the process of realizing the vision. Change begins with you. Get connected at inittogethersc.org.
I'm Kimberly Aiken-Cochran, and it is an honor to partner with the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina in the fight against prediabetes and diabetes. As a healthcare professional, my work is focused on keeping South Carolinians healthy. In 1994, I took my concerns and commitment to my neighbors to a national stage as Miss America. Today, I continue to work on a platform to improve the health of all South Carolinians. In the course of this program, you will hear firsthand stories of South Carolinians who have been diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes and their journey to improving their health. We'll take you through the rural parts of the Palmetto State, where you'll see the inner workings of the Catawba Indian Reservation and learn how our Native neighbors adjust their lifestyles. We'll also show you how 2 of the largest minority groups in South Carolina share many similarities around prediabetes and diabetes and their survival strategies. The scourges of prediabetes and diabetes are virtually everywhere in the United States, but the problem is especially serious in southern states like South Carolina. For many years, diabetes has been a top 10 leading cause of death in South Carolina. In fact, it's estimated that more than 1.3 million South Carolinians have prediabetes. Only 90% of them just don't know it. Contributing factors include poor diets and lack of exercise. Also, for many South Carolinians, especially those living in rural areas, limited access to healthcare providers is a big problem. We found people in one of the state's least populated counties sometimes have to go looking for ways to find help to battle the disease.
You could almost miss it as you travel down Highway 601 deep into South Carolina's Bamberg County. The tiny town of Earhart, founded more than 150 years ago by German immigrants who built lumber, flour, and grist mills, and a thriving community. But for decades, the population here has been dwindling. now down to fewer than 500.
Hey, picking up yours?
A lot of folks in Earhart are trying to keep their home alive and well. Among them, the owner of one of the town's most important present-day businesses.
My name is Donna Van, and I'm a registered pharmacist in the state of South Carolina. I opened this rural independent pharmacy in November of 2013. Earhart hasn't had a pharmacy since 1999.
Avant's Earhart Pharmacy fills prescriptions and many other needs, from clothes to Christmas decorations.
Hey, sweetie, how are you?
It's also a place for neighbors to meet and stay in touch.
This is our community, this is our people. We're probably kin to over 50% by blood somehow between all of us that work here. So yes, they are our family and our friends. There's also another factor.
Avant has taken her commitment to Earhart well beyond dispensing medicine. About half of her work week is spent teaching customers ways to improve their health,
As insulin is secreted out,
especially those who suffer from diabetes. This room in the back of the store is set up for both online and in-person classes.
yes, how are y'all doing? Come on.
On this day, Avant's clients include Levi Tedder and Cinder Still. Both diabetic, he's type 2, she's type 1. They've made weekly 68-mile round trips from the town of Nices to get Avant's advice.
Let's review the plate.
It seems to be working. She's convinced Levi to give up old and, frankly, really bad eating habits.
Now, I used to take the jar of peanut butter and dip out with a spoon, and I could eat most of that. Bacon, fried chicken, fried pork chops, all at the same time. I mean, I could go to KFC and get a bucket of chicken for myself.
You know, spacing it out.
Unhealthy diets, obesity, low incomes, limited options for physical fitness, all factors helping to make diabetes the 7th leading cause of death in South Carolina. More than 500,000 with diagnosed conditions, many more who have it but don't know it. Plus, 35% of the state's adults with prediabetes, meaning they have elevated blood glucose levels. The disease hits harder in sparsely populated counties, where it can be tough for a food store, a gym, or a pharmacy to stay in business. Only 2 other counties, Allendale and McCormick, have fewer residents, and Bamberg County's population is now down more than 14% since the 2010 census. Retired vascular surgeon Gerald Wilson heads the state's Diabetes Advisory Council.
We've heard of food deserts, and that is areas where you don't have access to good healthy food like fresh vegetables and fruit and that sort of thing. A lot of people buy their groceries at the dollar stores. You get calorie-intense foods in those locations. And so a part of the education is teaching patients how to read labels on foods to find out what's in the foods that they're getting and to try to limit those things that are harmful to them.
One of those areas short on fresh food sources used to be in the city of Bamberg. It has almost 7 times the population of Little Earhart. But before this Piggly Wiggly store opened last year, the people of Bamberg were forced to go far out of town to buy food. Jesse Wood is assistant manager.
There was nothing here for a couple of years, and they were having to go to Orangeburg or to Denmark or wherever to buy groceries.
The new store is a daily source for fresh fruits and vegetables. Meanwhile, Bamberg County and Earhart continue to expand availability through low-cost food sharing programs and a farmer's market. All of that is vital for Janice Hare of Bamberg. Much of her life, she's battled serious health issues, breast cancer, heart trouble that led to a triple bypass, vision problems, and, since 1987, diabetes.
Some days I'm bad, but most days I eat the right way. So I've had a lot of training from diabetic people. I mean, the people that work with these machines and things.
Access to better quality food has been a big help for diabetics here. Other obstacles remain. In Bamberg, one of the biggest, easy to see a few blocks from the store, the vacant complex once home to the 59-bed Bamberg County Memorial Hospital, closed now for 9 years, one of 2 hospitals to shut down in this part of the state over the last decade.
I'm Janice Hughes. I work for Low Country Healthcare Systems. We have multiple practices throughout the different counties here.
Hughes helps run Paget Family Practice, one of only 3 doctor's offices in the city.
When we had a hospital, we could get them urgent care right then and there. If somebody was having a heart attack or a stroke or diabetic problems, we could, get them help fairly quickly. Lots of times now we have to wait on our ambulances to come. If there's one available in the county nearby, we've had to life flight them out.
Nancy Foster is a realtor in Bamberg. She's also the mayor.
Time, is of the essence. And we had that emergency room in that hospital. It just meant so much to Bamberg. They talk about health care all the time in these rural areas, and yet they take our hospital away, so it's been tough.
Add to that the problem faced by diabetes patients everywhere, especially troublesome for those who don't have wealth or insurance. The high cost of insulin. Janice Hare needs it every day, most of the cost covered by her insurance.
I had to buy a vial of insulin. I was at Myrtle Beach and I didn't take any extra and I ran out. It cost me $100 for one vial.
Eventually, Bamberg County will fill part of the healthcare shortage with a new health department office in the old hospital, funding provided in part by a $250,000 contribution from the State Department of Health and Environmental Control. Back in Earhart, there are no health offices and no doctors. Dr. Wilson says the state is looking for solutions.
There's a task force on graduate medical education put together by the governor where we looked at what we can do to get more practitioners in rural areas, because the health of a community is definitely related to the ability for them to have care in that community.
That half a plate of non-starchy vegetable.
Donna Avant will continue to help her clients adjust their lifestyles. It is in some ways how small towns survive. Good people doing what they can because that's the right thing to do.
We support each other here. We still have the good kind-heartedness that was here years ago. It's still here.
The individuals and organizations that make up the Diabetes Action Council, also known as DAC, have come together to bring you an important online resource, inittogethersc.org. On this website, you can take an online test to find out your risk of prediabetes. You'll also learn how to join a diabetes prevention program that takes the guesswork out of losing weight, eating better, and being more active. You can discover new ways to stay healthy and sustain those changes over time. When you join, you'll receive support from a trained lifestyle coach to help you set and achieve realistic goals, keep you motivated, and manage stress. A recent report notes that participating in one of these lifestyle change programs can cut the risk of developing diabetes by 58%. But despite the best efforts, there are still more than a dozen counties in South Carolina without a single in-person program. The Palmetto State is home to more than 24,000 Native Americans. Another 83,000 people in South Carolina carry Native ancestry. A century ago, many Native people had never even heard of diabetes. Today, diabetes is more prevalent among Native Americans than any other racial or ethnic group. To learn more, we visited South Carolina's only federally recognized tribe.
On the banks of the Catawba River sits the Catawba Indian Nation. Here, folks know about diabetes firsthand.
Within Indian country, it's a plague.
Some of my family members had amputations because of diabetes.
It was something that was so prevalent, I just thought, it's like a cold or something.
I know one lady who had both her legs amputated.
Oh man, it's serious.
It's a serious disease.
It robs you of your life.
Diabetes is a medical condition in which the body is not able to properly process sugar in the blood. There are a lot of complications directly of diabetes, including heart disease and stroke.
There's neuropathy, so that means you're not having as much sensation with your nerves as you once did. There's also kidney disease.
I wish everyone in the world knew that diabetes can kill you.
There are misconceptions about why people get diabetes. Because for so long we thought it was only about genetics and about lifestyle choices. We know that adversity gets programmed into how our bodies function. Our communities have had a disproportionate amount of adversity in the form of poverty, discrimination, loss of land, killing of Native people. Another type of trauma that has occurred is one related to boarding schools. Native children as young as age 5, taken from their parents, they were set up to take away Indian children from their cultures, from everything that helped them to know who they were as Native people.
If the goal of colonization was to destroy our culture, then one of the ways to heal from it is by valuing our culture and being bold in our love for our culture.
Tribes are ideally positioned to really take a comprehensive approach to reducing the effects of stress and trauma and to increasing the well-being of their people.
We have the solutions in our communities, or at least we know how to find the solutions in our communities. What we need is resources and support to be able to pursue those solutions.
The Catawba have created holistic programs inspired by their heritage.
Our traditions are extremely important to our identity.
We've been around for 6,000, 10,000 years. And even though we're constantly changing and adapting, we're still bringing with us our culture.
We're very blessed as a community to have the programs that we have to help mitigate this disease and to help empower and educate our people.
Education begins with the tribe's youngest members.
Anyone know what this plant is? One of the things we do is we go on plant walks. So we load the kids up in these little strollers. Then we go walking around the neighborhood. We practice songs while we're with them. My goal is to raise a generation of fluent Catawba speakers at the same time that we're teaching them culture. So recognizing their name, recognizing social cues like eye contact, using their gross motor skills by being able to grasp a leaf or something.
When the kids are young and they can learn and they're eager to learn, then they'll just absorb it and pick it up right away.
Catawba cultural values are centered around the earth that we're living on. It's about going out and finding the plants that you can eat, going out and hunting and harvesting deer in a respectful way, fishing, canoeing, kayaking, and all of those are things that we could describe as a healthy lifestyle.
I'm a firm believer that if we ate the way our ancestors ate, then we wouldn't have the diabetes within our community.
The reservation actually is considered to be on a food desert. That means that there's no grocery stores within close driving distance. So if we have tribal elders or people without cars, it's hard to get around.
Each week, locally sourced foods are trucked in from a nearby farm coalition.
It's free for tribal citizens, so this kind of lets people experiment with things and eat fresh food that they normally wouldn't.
Oh, yay, peaches!
I know that a healthy future is possible because it's happened before, right? When explorers came here, they were shocked at how healthy tribes were, living with an abundance of food.
Black Snake Farm is kind of the newest project that Catawba Nation has taken on. So we have 22 acres dedicated fully to agriculture. We're growing all fresh produce. We have chickens and we have cattle.
Native American people need to eat like their forebears did. I was diagnosed when I was about 50. I was just exhausted.
Someone that would be at risk for diabetes or, if they're overweight, if a female, if she's had a baby that was 10 pounds or more, if you're over a certain age, if your immediate family member had diabetes, if you had gestational diabetes when you were pregnant.
I had gestational diabetes with all four of my children. Being a Southern girl, we love our fried foods, and my grandmother made yummy homemade biscuits, and we carved up and this yummy fried food. And that was just a lifestyle that was created for me. With my mom being a single parent, we were always rushing here and there. She had me in every activity, so it was always hurry up and grab some food. And like clockwork, every morning before we would go to school, we would get a can of cheer wine and ding dong or Twinkies, little, Debbie cakes, and that was my breakfast. My mom was diagnosed with diabetes as well. She had to become a dialysis patient. And so seeing her quality of life change and deteriorate, I knew right then and there I did not want this happening to me.
Cooking videos are created to teach people traditional recipes.
When you're cooking, you're passing on the right concepts to children, and that's the future generations. The main ingredient in succotash is, guess what? Coos, corn. We were doing the succotash dish, which is very common to southeastern native tribes. The other one was Catawba sweet potato cake, which is one of our traditional dishes. And then we made a sunflower seed soup. We completed our Native American feast.
The prevalence of diabetes in Native people in this country has actually gone down over the last several years.
We're actually hosting a year-long diabetes prevention program.
The population that we reach out to have what we call prediabetes.
We have a welcome packet we give people. We give them a workout, exercise, ball, jump ropes, healthy recipes, stuff like that. We measure our weight every week. I have a stress class, how to deal with stress management. I have a healthy food class, how to prepare healthy foods. I have a shopping class. When I go to the grocery store, what do we buy? What do we avoid buying? That goes to our Cope with Triggers class.
We end every single session by establishing a personal health goal. We call it a SMART goal. It means that it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's timed.
You gotta keep your head up straight. Health and wellness has always been my passion.
Talani Franks is the head coach for the Spirit Sprinters program.
It's a running program for youth in our tribe.
The Spirit Sprinters is a phenomenal program that all my children have participated in.
We have a few warm-up stretches, and some of our warm-up stretches consist of animals, like a chipmunk and deer and things like that. Ready, go!
We're encouraging kids to get out there and be active, not being stuck in front of a computer screen or a tablet, get that fresh air, and learn to find activities that they enjoy.
We actually train them for a 5K race.
We're heading to the boat launch.
I believe teaching kids early in life about the benefits of healthy eating, getting in physical activity is so important. It's establishing a routine. Once you get that routine started, then I feel like it becomes a lifestyle. We are Catawba Indian Nation. We are Catawba Strong, and that's what we like to teach our youth. We want them to learn self-esteem. We want them to be just one big team. They actually have a motto that they say at the end of each practice, and it's Satahuri, which means run strong.
Satahuri, run strong. Satahuri, run strong.
There's also been a real effort to use team-based care for diabetes, to include nutritionists and nurses and behavioral health experts to help look at the whole person as best we can.
Some patients seek care at the Catawba Service Unit. Some patients have the service unit come to them.
But with home visits, you're going to a person's home and you're assessing their whole environment and how they operate within that environment. And it's a great way to really get a better picture of what's going on in this particular person's life.
I just don't have the stamina nor the strength that I did some years back. I learned more today about reading labels. Also, we talked about the exercise that I need to be doing. My wish is to live a long, healthy life yet.
Just because you've been diagnosed with this diabetes, it's not a death sentence. We may want to bump the Levemir up just a little bit.
My name's Randy Sanders. I'm 70 years old. I'm on 2 different kinds of insulin and all kinds of medicine. When you're young and strong, you're invincible. You don't take it very serious.
Like some tribal members, Randy receives care both on and off the reservation. He was given a monitor that constantly measures his glucose levels.
And this thing right here, I'd say, saved my life. This is one thing I've never lost.
It's in your control to really manage your health. You have the tools, you have the power to really work on those blood sugars and really keep them in a healthy range.
I was able to lose a total of 70 pounds. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I was addicted to Pepsis. I would drink 3 or 4 Pepsis a day. If I can beat the Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola addiction, anybody can. So it can be done. I'm living proof.
I really want my community to feel empowered, and I want them to feel like they are the managers of their own health.
We come from survivors, right? Every Catawba that's alive today is someone who survived the smallpox epidemics, who survived wars, who survived poverty and other kinds of violence. So we are the descendants of survivors, which means that we can continue to survive for the next generation.
Our people are warriors. We're strong in spirit. We're strong in our minds and our bodies. So if we combine all those, then we can combat diabetes as a community and as a population.
The data tells us that in the United States, more than 12% of African Americans have diagnosed diabetes. In South Carolina, those numbers are even higher. Here, more than 16% of African Americans have the disease. Both nationally and statewide, 10 to 12% of Hispanic individuals have been diagnosed with diabetes. Their presence in South Carolina is growing. South Carolina's communities of color are diverse. Not only do people have different family histories, educational levels, and incomes, there are also differences in how people view a diabetes diagnosis. While some share their health status, others keep the information private. Some don't claim their diagnosis at all. This worries healthcare providers as they say medical and emotional support for patients with diabetes is often critical. The diagnosis and the accompanying need for lifestyle changes often last a lifetime.
Like many people, especially African Americans, diabetes has affected my life in many ways. I remember my grandparents having diabetes. Back then, the old folk used to call it having sugar.
When I hear the word diabetes, I think it's something uncontrollable.
The African American community and Hispanic community are particularly vulnerable for the damaging effects of diabetes because of genetic predisposition.
I've had grandparents, aunts, uncles, my brother and my son are diabetic.
Diabetes will tear your body apart.
It is definitely an epidemic, and it has been an epidemic for a long time.
Whether it be less access to health care, living in food deserts, reduced access to safe places to play and exercise, those are some of the risk factors for developing diabetes. The goal would be to help bring that A1C down. The history of injustice in this country contributed to inequities in health care as well.
Crystal Matlock is a Charleston-based physician. The socioeconomic issues that some of her patients face can be tough to override.
In your 15 to 30-minute visit with a patient, how can you overcome their lack of transportation to appointments, or their lack of social support, or their lack of housing? We also have to think about our own biases as medical professionals. Are we giving everyone the same type of care?
I think for me, the most important thing for all of us to remember is that we're all humans. We all share the same human experience.
Sensitivity to the lives of patients includes being mindful about their finances.
There is a disconnect, if you will, between the healthcare providers and between patients when it comes to understanding how insurances work and how medications are covered.
Insulin prices have risen steeply, astronomically over the last 30 years. So people are picking between insulin and rent, insulin and food. That's insane.
Unfortunately, we are losing the war on diabetes, and we are having many casualties with patients suffering, with people losing their limbs, losing their eyesight, having kidney failure, too many heart attacks and strokes that never needed to happen.
I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1999. I knew a little about diabetes because my mother was a diabetic.
My hope is that I can bridge that gap by translating from physicians to patients, but also from patients to physicians, to explain to physicians what patients are going through on a day-to-day basis and how we can help them.
Dr. Yacube is my guardian angel because he worked with me over the years, and I'm at a point now where I am more confident than ever with the diabetes.
The most important part is education, giving hope, knowing how to talk to the patients and how to listen to patients.
Dr. Sharif Yacube is also aware of gaps in the system.
When I went through my endocrinology fellowship, I realized that something big was missing. We didn't have that deep understanding of nutrition that could make diabetes management practical for patients. One of the most important things that I try to do is to help my colleagues understand diabetes better and provide them with some practical solutions.
Is that a healthy diabetes meal?
I make videos on YouTube for providers and doctors as well as patients. So I hope with that I would provide them with education that they know this is not a disease that has to control my life. This is a beatable disease. You can beat it, but we have to do it as a community together. The role of faith for the African American community cannot be overstated. It can be instrumental in the destruction of diabetes.
The Temple Cleanse is a holistic consecration. There's a diet that we follow. Sugar, of course, is gone. And even a lot of the carbs that turn to sugar are cut out. I watched my life transform just by what I could eat. Instead of having pasta, spaghetti squash. Instead of having rice, cauliflower rice, things that we didn't even know existed. Exercise is also a major component of the Temple Cleanse consecration. So we want to get active. We want to get that heart pumping. We only have 1 hour of television, of social media, 2 hours on the weekends. We also have devotion in times of prayer, a lot of centering meditation.
Thousands of people have already participated in the Temple Cleanse. Many are enjoying healthier, more spiritual lifestyles, lower body mass index, and lower blood pressure.
I went from being pre-diabetic to my doctor asking me, "What in the world are you doing?" I became a marathon runner. It gave me all new life and energy. The biggest change, though, is that people feel a deeper, meaningful purpose, and they feel peace and joy and acceptance and forgiveness. And those are intangible. We can't measure them. We've also had a number of young kids really enjoy the Temple Cleanse. They love the family time. They actually love engaging and feeling heard and seen by their parents and loved ones. The Temple Cleanse does not replace medical science. It does not replace a medical doctor. It works alongside all of that. My hope is that with each generation, we become more and more whole. We've been through so much. There's so much trauma that is still embedded within our very DNA, and it plays out. Even our diet is a byproduct of the systemic oppression that we have experienced.
When I was coming up, they didn't teach us how to eat. Just eat, clean your plate.
I think both the African American community and the Hispanic come from a place where they were at disadvantage. And when you have that history, many of those folks overcompensate by eating more. because they couldn't before, and they put more on their children. The Hispanic community really does have a different culture. And there's two kinds of patients that I get from that community. And one is one who is extremely compliant, who wants to know what to do, and you give them the recipe for what to do, and they'll follow it, and they'll be a great success.
Estoy comiendo saludable y está uno tomando la medicina, el medicamento que le recetan a uno.
And then there's another component who kind of feel like they want to do things their own way, and they have a hard time getting to the point to making changes.
No lo puedo creer todavía, pero tengo que creerlo de que tengo azúcar.
Going to the stage of denial is one of the first steps, and we have people that stay there for a while, especially with something like diabetes where you don't feel it.
The people that came here, it came to work. The people that is in Guatemala and Central America and Mexico, they came here just to work to make a better life for the families.
The patients usually have to work strenuous jobs, so you kind of have to figure out, okay, you may have to drink a little bit of sugar, but you can't drink, the 32-ounce Gatorade. Lifestyle can really make a big impact on how your blood sugar levels are.
If you go to a store, a Latino store, all we eating is sweets. We're not drinking water. We're drinking soda.
We don't really want to give up our soda and our sweets or our treats. But if you can find things that you like that are healthy, that's the trick.
We know nothing. I know it's difficult to say it for me, okay? It's very difficult. But there's so much information about the wrong thing to eat. The commercials that I watched for years, my favorite food, it's been hurting me.
Lydia Cotton, a cancer and stroke survivor, was recently diagnosed with diabetes. Her colleague Jose has diabetes in his family.
A mí me gustaría que la gente buscara más información porque nadie está exento de la diabetes.
And the only thing that is going to save me, is education, nothing else.
My mother told me that my old sister has diabetes. We were thinking, oh my God, it was difficult. We were thinking, now what? How we gonna take care of her? We don't want to lose her soon. So what can we do for her? So we trying to educate. We were looking on internet. We were reading the information that the doctor gave to us, and we trying to put everything together.
The Hispanic community that is local here, it is not the same the ones that is in New York or Miami. And it's because they have resources over there, right? We are in the South, right? So it is totally different.
Nutrition courses in Spanish aren't always easy to find, and people don't necessarily seek out those which do exist. Concerns about cost and even the possibility of deportation prevent some from seeking out education and healthcare altogether.
Type 2, we can take it back. It's not easy though. But the more I talk about it, the stronger I get when it comes to that. And the more convinced I am that I can beat it.
And talk about it she does. Lydia hosts Prevención. It is a weekly bilingual podcast with Kayla Visser, a diabetes prevention coach.
Vamos a graduar. Kayla, I'm going to lose 15 pounds.
I have a vested interest in seeing that we do everything we can to provide information and care for those individuals. I've lost family members from the complications of diabetes.
If we were to try to address it as a society, we'd have to have a different cultural norm. And we'd have to have rules about the kind of marketing available to children and families, and rules about the kind of foods that are available, and more available access to activities and active lifestyles.
Even during the best of times, managing a chronic condition like type 2 diabetes takes patience and determination. But then came the COVID-19 pandemic, which made self-care especially challenging for many people. News reports told us that those with diabetes could be at extra risk for COVID. What we didn't hear enough was that the pandemic put some people at extra risk for diabetes and its related complications.
I've heard of type 2 diabetes recently been described as an epidemic in a pandemic, and I think that that's pretty fitting right now, just because so many have had limited access to exercise and socialization, increased access to snacks. We need to get a sense of normalcy back.
Patients have not been working on their diabetes nearly as much as they were prior to the pandemic, which resulted in devastating complications.
Maybe during COVID, they weren't getting their medication refills. I had a lot of people who weren't attending their doctor visits every 3 months, which is what we like. Some people went without care and maybe they had more stress, maybe their blood sugars got elevated. Stress is definitely a factor for patients with diabetes.
The pandemic hit communities of color especially hard. It was extra difficult for the Spanish-speaking population, as information they could understand was in short supply. Lydia Cotton and her colleagues did what they could.
It was insane, the amount of hours that we spent on the phone because people were calling. They didn't know what to do when they go to the hospital. When they call the hospital, there was not information available for them in Spanish. So we create this gigantic movement in social media, putting information and translating ourselves. And I'm talking to people, doing live Facebook. Doctors were recording themselves, sending the video to us, and we post it. That's how we get it done.
With sharing of virtual information becoming more common, many of the diabetes prevention programs around the state went virtual and could be accessed by those who had a reliable internet connection.
Isn't that kind of your goal to maintain now? Well, this is a CDC curriculum that we go through that talks about healthy eating and exercise, coping with stress. As a dietitian, I'm used to kind of pushing towards a goal. Well, this whole process is about facilitating the group to help each other to meet those goals.
Susan Mills Tucker facilitates an online program from Buford.
Kudos to everybody. It sounds like we're all doing good with that. The goal is to help people lose at least 5% of their body weight and achieve a more active lifestyle. Those two things are associated with a 58% reduction in the chance of even developing diabetes. And if you happen to be over 70, make that 80%.
And the main reason that we, as your healthcare providers, rally for good blood sugar control so much is that we don't want you to develop those risks.
You don't want to lose a limb. You don't want to have to go on dialysis. You don't want to go blind. You don't want to have nerve pain that's so painful that it can't be managed.
I've had patients who, don't have much, but because they receive that education and that empathy, that collaboration among healthcare providers and between healthcare providers and patients, they were able to get their blood sugar under amazing control.
That's why we reiterate this so much. And if we could start that process in our children of knowing, hey, taking care of your health is important, I think that would be a really valuable lesson.
The Charleston-based MUSC Boeing Center for Children's Wellness has jump-started that process. They partner with 250 schools in South Carolina to engage students in evidence-based wellness strategies. Pediatrician Janice Key directs the program.
We motivate them through a point system. They get points for each thing they do. Like if you put in a school garden, you get so many points. And we turn it into a big, happy competition. Every school that wins gets cash money that goes to their wellness committee. Our vision is a South Carolina where every child is healthy and well and thrives in life, reaches their ultimate potential. The childhood obesity rate did go down in participating schools. But also, participating schools had kids that missed fewer days of school, were less likely to get suspended for bad behavior, and were more likely to graduate from high school. The most powerful variable that determines an adult person's health is their education level. Education contributes to health, which contributes to education, which contributes to health.
At Flowertown Elementary in Somerville, students engage in what they call action-based learning. They take brain breaks, study science in the garden, breathe deeply in those spaces designated for calm, and learn about healthy foods. Dr. Key explains that these practices can go a long way, even in the face of health disparities created by social and economic disadvantage.
More African American Black kids live in poverty in dangerous situations, but layered on top of that is the continued lifelong stress of racial injustice. When I was in training, there was no such thing as type 2 diabetes in children. Now, today, I test all of my obese patients, and every year I diagnose quite a few children with new onset type 2 diabetes.
One of my youngest patients with type 2 diabetes is around 8 years of age. If I can prevent a child from having a chronic illness or help a child with a chronic illness to live their best life, that is my ultimate goal. And I think that diabetes is a place where a lot of kids may struggle because it's such a complex illness and it takes so much time out of their day to manage appropriately and requires really a big team to help them to be successful.
Diabetes, we think, will shorten your life by 10 to 20 years unless you take excellent care of yourself. That's why I'm so focused on helping kids succeed in school so they will thrive in life.
Well, I hope for my patients to know and understand that it's not their fault, that they have diabetes, that diabetes can be managed, that diabetes is not to be trifled with. It is a vicious enemy and that it is very deceptive, yet it can be beat. And it's mainly by simple things that don't require a lot of tools, resources, money. It just requires a change in mindset.
A lot of times people would think, oh, well, it's in our family and so has it, my grandma had it, I'm gonna have it, I'm gonna lose a toe or a foot or something. But really, you can do things to help reduce your risks.
I hope to be at a point one day where I don't have to be on medication and I can get out and explore and do whatever I need to do.
You know, there are many amazing heroes in the patient population that I see every day. People who are struggling with so many things without us recognizing them or understanding how big of an accomplishment this is.
I would like people to know that's living with diabetes, that it's something you can live with, but you have to take control.
I hope that people would understand two things about diabetes. Number one, how vicious of a disease it is, but number two, that it's totally beatable, that you can beat it.
Some closing thoughts. Go to the website, inittogethersc.org. Take the test to see if you're at risk for prediabetes. Talk to your health provider. Participate in diabetes prevention classes online or in person. Doctors and healthcare providers tell us that the dietary and lifestyle recommendations made for people with prediabetes and diabetes can be useful for everyone. Actually, those with diabetes who follow the nutrition and physical activity guidelines might be healthier than their friends and family who don't have the disease. Share the principles of healthy eating and active living with your family, friends, and neighbors. Remember, we're in it together, South Carolina.